When you find an area in Minecraft Survival that captures your imagination with beautiful backdrops, an incredible colour palette and insane potential, there's really only one thing you can do with it: build. And I'm going to do just that with this palette of blocks, although this is freestyle, so goodness only knows what I'll end up using. I decided that with a limited area to play with, a tower would work perfectly for this small peninsula. I started out by giving myself two slightly overlapping circles of cobblestone that I could use as a footprint for this tower by the sea. I'm going to build this from the ground up, and the stripped spruce wooden floor is the first internal element I'm adding. I then need to start my journey upwards, and I thought that a separate internal and external wall system would give the best effect. So I used stripped oak wood for the inside and, at least to start with, some stone block bricks to create the external wall. I have to start the external trim with stone, cobblestone and andesite to give the appearance of the tower being built on rocks rather than directly on the grass, and then I add the spot where the door is going to go and build up some more levels with stone brick and stripped oak wood. I raise the internal and external walls up 3 blocks above that internal floor level, with the external platform 1 block above that, and place the spruce door in the gap between the stripped oak. Before I close out the ground floor, I need to show you what's going to be inside, and I thought that a magical tower by the water ought to have its enchanting setup front and centre. I create a max enchanting station with a horseshoe of bookcases along with empty bookcases for enchanted book storage and some looms side on for an additional variation. I then add plenty of extra storage in the form of barrels across the top, placing the enchantment table and some anvils to combine enchants with, plus a grindstone to correct any mistakes. I then add scaffold for lampstands and additional shelves using trapdoors with even more barrels on top of those. Before I go too high with the tower, I need the side building to catch up a bit. This is going to be a secondary elevated entrance, so I build up a flight of steps to the same level as the large tower and trim around with stone brick. I can then add a platform which will also help guide the second level of the main tower shortly, and then trim that off with the steps and the platform with some andesite walls before building up the main tower structure to meet it, and then adding some oak steps which will lead up to the doorway at this level. Before placing in the floor on this level, I add in some spruce fences that will act as lamp fixtures for the enchanting room below, and then use oak slabs across to create a floor that's level with the opening for the door on the side, leaving a single opening in the corner just between the two doors that will act as a means to get from the bottom level all the way to the top of the tower using ladders. I wanted to change up the way the exterior looked at this point, so started to indent the outer wall using stone stairs, which will act as a gentle change of diameter, coupled with the use of spruce trapdoors. This pinches in the tower at this point, and that will lead to a more interesting shape towards the end. More oak wood and planks finish the walls off before I add some extra external trim using spruce stairs and fence posts. Once this level is 3 blocks above the floor area, taking it just over the door, I knock out 2 high windows on each side and add another 2 layers on top, making the total height for this floor 7 blocks so far. Before I go any higher, I want to just push my eye towards some of the future detail, so I add in some fence posts in the corners before adding an additional stripped wood layer, and then using oak wood stairs and slabs to trim at the very top all the way around. I wanted to strongly differentiate the second and third levels, so using some oak wood I bring in 8 vertical beams that will be visible from the outside, and then thought about what level 2 would be for. It seemed logical that it would be living quarters, so although you can't quite see it in the time-lapse yet, I add in 3 beds because, why not 3 beds with note block headboards, plus a number of glowing item frames filled with tools that the tower owner can use in their Minecraft world. They'll also need some armour, so 6 armour stands with different armours are also flanking the bed. Furnaces and a working area are included, as is a red and white carpet in the centre that's designed to mirror the beds, along with lanterns hanging from chains in the corners. That level is complete internally, so I place another floor across the top with more oak slabs, again leaving a hole for that ascending ladder. I can then start level 3, which has the primary structure of a single layer of stripped oak wood with 2 windows punched out on each side, just to give a clear view in every single direction. I then trim off the top of this level with some stone stairs to add a new and interesting colour to the build. Once the stone surround is complete and it gives a reasonable overhang with extra slabs, I increase the height of the oak beams and add some pop-outs with visible oak rings to add further texture and detail. That allows me to increase the width of this section, giving me a guide to the size of the roof. I wanted a circular style roof that tapers in quickly before curving upwards asymptotically, and I wanted a contrasting colour too. I used slabs to creep inwards sharply at first before adding blocks and more slabs to begin the change of angle. I realised I hadn't put any detailing into the third level, and I thought that storage seemed to be the most logical function, so I added several chest towers between some internal windowsills, and they act as surfaces for lighting, so the wooden ceiling can be added with more oak planks, again maintaining that ladder hole in the corner all the way up from the ground floor. This is really important because the addition of a telltale obsidian block here means that this is the portal chamber. And to have it in the roof area just feels right, protected but almost built into the roof itself. Additional nether block storage is also added here before I continue the roof shape, beginning the increase in the angle towards the pointed top. Once that primary roof structure was in, it looks pretty blocky and square, especially at the very top, and that just won't do. So I add blocks and slabs and stairs to each roof face to slowly carve and sculpt out the shape into a more realistic and curved circular roof, with each side being identical to the last for the symmetry. This one has to be symmetrical. I find that with roofs, I either go totally asymmetrical with a roof that's physically curved over in one direction, or keep it perfectly symmetrical. It just looks messed up otherwise. The primary structure is complete, and we can kind of see what our tower is going to look like, but it needs so much additional detail on the outside now to stop those straight lines and continuous colour. I start by trimming out some of that stone at the top and replace it with acacia. I then add in some oak trapdoors over those pop-outs for a nice crossed effect, bring in some light and then place spruce trapdoors on the wood levels to break up that tan coloured stripped oak. I also want to chip away at the tall oak beams, so I use barrels at the bottom and the top to give a strapped texture that hints to a more robust construction. I love using stone buttons as details on barked wood, so they get placed next, and then it's time for a colour change with some green vines placed around the structure to help it merge into the surrounding environment. I then needed to build up that front entrance, and whilst I didn't want it grand, I needed it to be obvious, so spruce steps leading up seemed perfect, and I trimmed those out with some stone brick. Once that entrance was in, I had the freedom to build up that rocky outcrop that this tower had been created on. This was pretty simple, using andesite, cobble and stone blocks, bricks, stairs and slab to try and create that natural organic shape with smooth curves and a differentiated texture all the way around. After playing with that stone for a bit, I added in some pots at the front for torch flowers and began my pathway to the building. That pathway joins up both entrances, and I had a little bit of gravel spattered in for cosmetic effect. I then needed some bushes. Now, I love leaves as bushes, and I can sometimes go a little bit mad, but with this build it needed enough to look like it had been a less manicured look, and that the bushes had time to grow around the tower for many years. Every path needs a little bit of light too, so a few fence posts with lanterns scattered around sorted that out before I add some extra bush variation with spruce leaves and a few flowering azalea leaves too in amongst that oak. And then finally, a splash of red is added with some roses. I'll change up those flat stone bricks with some mossy shades and cobble too. And with that, our tower is complete. It's a fairly simple build that I hope you could kind of follow along despite the time lapse. Do feel free to watch again and pause when you need to catch up with what I did. And remember, if you decide to make it, and do let me know in the comments if you do, add your own twist to it as well, with a different palette or maybe a wider or smaller shape. Let me know what you think of this style of video too. The feedback is always invaluable, and I'll really look forward to seeing you again in another video. You take it easy now. Bye.